I'm John Reynolds, 68, retired property manager. I've spent 4 decades dealing with tenants, contracts, and stubborn people who thought they could bend the rules. So believe me when I say, I've seen it all, or at least I thought I had, until that Saturday morning in March. It was barely past 9 a.m. The coffee was hot, my rods were packed, and the tackle box was sitting by the door. I was planning a quiet morning by the lake, same as every weekend. My daughter Lauren had taken the kids, Oliver and Lily, on a play date, and I had the house to myself. Just me, the lake, and maybe a few perch if I was lucky. Then I heard it, the deep, grinding growl of a truck engine. Not a delivery truck, not the mail. No, this thing had some age to it. I stepped out onto the porch just in time to see my son-in-law, Alex, pulling up in an old Ford flatbed with a blue tarp tied over the back. Behind him, Lauren's SUV came to a stop on the curb, and then the doors started opening. First came Alex, then Lauren, then the kids, and then two unfamiliar people I'd never seen before, climbing slowly down from the passenger side. They looked to be in their 70s, holding pillows, a microwave, and one of those little fans you keep next to your bed in summer. I just stood there. "John," Alex waved way too cheerfully. "Hey, I wanted to surprise you. This is my dad, Douglas, and my mom, Nancy. They had a little issue with their apartment. We figured it'd be okay if they stayed here for a while." "Stayed here? A while?" I asked, still frozen on the top step. "Yeah, just until they find something else. Shouldn't be long. It's just temporary. You've got space, right? Let me explain something. I own this house. Fully paid off. My name's the only one on the deed. I didn't work my whole life managing buildings and difficult tenants just to have someone, especially my unemployed, overconfident son-in-law, decide who gets to move in without even a phone call. But there they were, already hauling bags out of the truck like they were checking into a damn Airbnb. Lauren didn't say a word. She didn't even look at me. That told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't agreed to this either. "Alex," I said calmly, "you want to tell me why this wasn't a discussion before you brought your parents and half their belongings onto my driveway?" "John, come on. It's just for a few days. They got evicted yesterday. It's an emergency. And your emergency somehow became my responsibility. How?" He didn't answer, just smiled that fake, nervous smile he uses when he knows he's cornered. I turned to Douglas and Nancy. They were already making themselves comfortable, rolling a suitcase toward the front steps. Nancy was carrying a potted plant like she'd just redecorated the place in her mind. "Afternoon," Douglas said. "We really appreciate this." Alex said it'd be no problem. "Did he?" I muttered. "That's news to me." Still, I didn't make a scene. I didn't throw their things into the yard, though every cell in my body wanted to. I simply stepped aside, let them in, and canceled my fishing trip without a word. But inside, I was already planning my next move. They settled into the guest room like they'd booked it 6 months ago. Nancy rearranged the dresser. Douglas turned the TV volume up loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Within 2 hours, they were sipping tea on my patio like they'd lived here all their lives. Alex? He acted like everything was fine. Walked around the house humming to himself, helping Nancy plug in her heating pad like we were one big happy family. That night, Lauren cornered him in the kitchen. "You didn't even ask," she hissed, trying to keep her voice down. "You just showed up. What was I supposed to do? Let them sleep in the truck? You could have called. Talk to me. Talk to my dad. It's temporary. You keep saying that, but they brought 6 bags, their own microwave, and a plant, Alex. A damn plant." I didn't interrupt. I just listened from the hallway. The next morning, I tested something. I asked Nancy, politely, if she and Douglas had started looking at rentals in the area. "Oh, not yet," she said, waving it off. "We figured we'd take a few days to rest first. It's been a stressful week." "Right," I said. By Tuesday, they were still here. No effort to leave. No talk of looking. They ate meals with us, watched TV, took over the laundry machine. Douglas complained that the kids made too much noise. Nancy suggested I reorganize my spice rack. "Too much paprika. You only need one." "Well, Nancy," I replied, "I didn't realize you'd be managing my kitchen now." She laughed. Thought I was joking. I wasn't. Wednesday evening, I called Alex into my office, the small converted den with my fishing rods hanging on the wall and a filing cabinet that still holds contract from 2004. He sat down like he was in trouble. He was. Alex, I said, let's get one thing straight. Your parents are guests, but uninvited ones. That means they're on borrowed time. I know it was sudden, but no, stop. You made a decision that wasn't yours to make. You brought people into my house without consent, and now you're acting like this is normal. It's not. Okay, so how long can they stay? They have until the end of the week. He blinked, swallowed hard. That's just a few days. Exactly. But where will they go? Wherever people go when they don't have a place and they can't freeload off family. Motel, shelter, your place, hell, I don't care. But they're not staying here. Not without terms. What kind of terms? I pulled out a sheet of paper I'd written up that afternoon. Rent breakdown, utility estimates, guest room usage fees, meal costs. His face turned pale. You're charging them? Yes. Unless they're gone by Sunday night. I gave him the paper. No emotion, just facts and figures. He sat in silence, scanning the numbers. It was the first time in a long while that I saw him speechless. John, this feels like punishment. It's not. It's a boundary. Something you apparently don't understand. But they're family. No, you're family. They're strangers. And in my house, strangers don't live for free. He got up and left without another word. But I knew the message had landed. That night, Douglas tried to tell me how grateful they were. Nancy brought me tea I didn't ask for. I told them both the same thing. You can stay until Sunday. After that, either pay rent or pack your bags. I don't know what Alex promised them. I don't care. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't even started yet. This was just a warning shot. And I never give a warning unless I'm prepared to follow through. To be why Thursday morning, I already knew how this was going to play out. I'd seen this movie too many times before. Tenants who just need a few days, families who promise they'll find something soon. 40 years in property management teaches you one thing. Nobody leaves until you make it uncomfortable to stay. And that's exactly what I planned to do. At breakfast, Nancy was already at my kitchen counter making herself comfortable, literally. She had my coffee mug, my newspaper, and her slippers on. John, she said sweetly, your coffee's too strong. I added more water for you. You'll thank me later. Did you? I said, that's thoughtful, Nancy. Though next time, maybe don't touch my mug. She blinked. Oh, I just thought. Exactly, I cut in. You thought. In my kitchen. Without asking. Douglas was in the living room watching the morning news. Volume cranked so high the windows rattled. My grandkids were trying to eat breakfast at the table, but the tension in the room was thick enough to chew. Grandpa, Oliver whispered, are they going to live here forever? Not if I can help it, I said quietly. That evening, Alex came home late for whatever he called his startup meetings. He walked in like everything was perfectly fine, greeted his parents, gave Lauren a kiss, and sat down at my table. So, I said casually, did you find them a place yet? We're working on it, he replied, cutting into his food. There's a listing in the next town. They just need to check references. Good. Then they'll be gone by Sunday. He froze, fork halfway to his mouth. About that, they might need a few more days. How many's a few? Maybe a week. No, John. Come on. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You said Sunday. I agreed. Now it's Thursday, and your few days have turned into a full week of freeloading. Lauren stayed silent, staring down at her plate. She knew better than to get in the middle of it. I respected that. You're being unfair, Alex muttered. Unfair. I leaned back in my chair. Let me explain unfair, son. Unfair is being ambushed in your own home with 2 strangers and 6 suitcases. Unfair is paying for food, electricity, and water for people you didn't invite. Unfair is pretending family is an excuse for disrespect. His ears went red. They're not freeloading. They're not paying rent. They're not helping. They're not looking for apartments. What do you call that? Charity work. By Saturday morning, I could tell they still hadn't packed a thing. Nancy was baking cookies in my oven. Douglas was napping on my couch. And Alex had conveniently disappeared to make calls. The only one actually doing something useful was Lauren, cleaning up after everyone else. That's when I made my move. I called my old friend, Steve, who ran a local property management office. Steve, I need a favor. You still got those printed rental contracts I used years ago? Sure do, he said. You kicking someone out? Something like that. 2 hours later, I had a folder in my hand and a plan in motion. Sunday afternoon rolled around. The clock ticked towards 6. The air was heavy. I could hear Douglas and Nancy in the guest room, laughing at some TV show like nothing was wrong. I waited until they finished dinner before I walked in with the folder. All right, I said, setting the papers on the table. Time to talk business. Nancy's smile faded. Business? Yes, your extended stay here. Since you're still in my home past Sunday, this is no longer a free arrangement. Alex frowned. John, you can't be serious. Completely serious. If they stay, they pay. $400 a month, utilities included. If they can't pay, they leave. Those are the terms. Douglas sat up. You're charging rent? To family. To guests who never asked permission. Yes. Nancy slammed her hand on the table. That's heartless. No, that's experience. 40 years of people like you telling me it's just a few days. You want to stay here? Then you contribute like adults. Alex tried to calm them. Let's just talk this through. We're done talking, I said. Either sign the agreement or be out by tomorrow morning. Lauren's jaw tightened, but I could see it. Relief. She was done playing nice too. Nancy looked ready to explode. We're too old for this nonsense. Then you'll sleep better somewhere else. The argument lasted over an hour. Douglas ranted about family values. Nancy complained about respect for elders. But I'd already made up my mind. Finally, Alex broke the silence. Fine, he said. They'll pay. Nancy gasped. Alex, it's his house, Mom. He's right. For the first time that week, I saw something rare in him, accountability. Maybe it stung his pride, but he knew he had no ground left to stand on. Good, I said. Then tomorrow morning, we'll sign everything. I'll give you receipts like proper tenants. Douglas muttered something under his breath, but I didn't care. That night, the house was quieter than it had been all week. At sunrise, I made my coffee strong, just the way I liked it, and went out to the porch. The lake shimmered in the distance, calm and silent. My fishing rods were still waiting by the door. Inside, I could hear faint voices, Alex whispering to his parents, trying to reason with them. He'd finally learned what happens when you push a man who's spent his life managing boundaries. By 9 o'clock, they signed the contract. Reluctant, red-faced, grumbling, but signed. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just tucked the papers into my file cabinet and said, Welcome to the arrangement you created. Because this wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was just the foundation. And believe me, I was only getting started. Monday morning came with the smell of burnt toast and resentment. Nancy was in the kitchen, clattering dishes louder than usual, while Douglas sulked on the back patio like a child who'd just lost his favorite toy. Alex avoided eye contact with everyone, and Lauren, well, she poured herself a full mug of black coffee and sat at the far end of the dining table, saying nothing. Smart move. I laid the contract out in front of them again with a pen. Same terms we discussed, for $100 a month, or $200 plus household tasks, all listed in the appendix. You'll initial every clause. Douglas squinted at the paper like it was in Mandarin. What kind of tasks are we talking about? Glad you asked, I said, sliding the attachment across. Vacuuming twice a week. Dishes daily. Laundry every Thursday. Yard work on weekends. Bathroom cleaning rotated weekly. Nancy's eyebrows shot up. I have a sensitive back, John. And Douglas has a sensitive pride, I said. Yet here we are, signing contracts like grown-ups. Don't worry, I assign tasks based on capabilities. You're on kitchen and light laundry. Douglas gets lawn and repairs. Fair trade for a 50% rent discount. Alex looked over at me. You really typed all this? Typed, formatted, printed, and legally sound. Steve from Henderson Realty notarized the draft this morning. Douglas leaned back. This is more intense than a commercial lease, because I treat my home like one. They signed, one by one. No smiles, no handshake, just dry ink on paper and a thick silence hanging over the breakfast table. By Wednesday, the reality of what they'd agreed to had fully set in. Douglas had to fix the squeaky bathroom door. Instead, he tried WD-40 and made it worse. I gave him a toolbox and a YouTube video. I'm 73 years old, he muttered, and still breathing. Congratulations. Now grab the screwdriver. Nancy tried to skip dish duty by forgetting, so I left them in the sink. By the end of the day, the kitchen smelled like a tuna factory in July. Lauren didn't lift a finger. That was part of the contract. I made sure of it. They want the deal. They do the work, I told her. You're not bailing them out. Fine by me, she said. I have shifts at the hospital. I don't have time to babysit two adults playing house guests. Friday night, Alex pulled me aside. John, this whole thing is tense. I'm worried it's damaging relationships. Then maybe next time you won't turn someone's home into a refugee center without permission. They're not used to this. They better get used to it. This isn't a couch-crashing sleepover. It's a rental arrangement. He exhaled, rubbed his face. Do you enjoy this? Making them squirm. You think this is about enjoyment? I said, this is about restoring order. Your parents broke into a system without consent. I built that system. I maintain it. They either follow the rules or leave. They're struggling. They're not. They're just inconvenienced. That shut him up. Sunday afternoon rolled around again. I sat with my notebook and reviewed the weekly tasks. Kitchen, half done. Bathroom, skipped. Backyard, untouched. They owed me $200, but they'd only earned about $120 in task credit. I called a house meeting. Here's the report, I said, handing Nancy a checklist. Tasks completed in red. Missed ones crossed out. You kept a scorecard? She snapped. Of course. I track what's earned. This is humiliating. No, Nancy. This is accountability. Douglas tried to interrupt. Look, we've done most of it. Most isn't all. You signed a contract. $80 due by tomorrow morning. Cash or check. No excuses. Nancy was fuming. What if we just don't pay? Then the full rent is due, $400. And if that doesn't happen, we move to eviction. Alex jumped in. You wouldn't evict them. You want to test that theory? They paid. Monday morning, there was a shift. Douglas started mowing the front lawn without me reminding him. Nancy scrubbed the bathroom sink, even replaced the air freshener. They were angry, but they were moving. More importantly, they were learning. By week 3, Douglas actually asked if I had spare paint for the backyard fence. Nancy prepared dinner without being told, and it was good. Pork roast, baked carrots, real gravy. I haven't made this since the 90s, she told me. That explains the flavor, I said with a smirk. She almost smiled. Then, something I didn't expect happened. Lauren approached me after dinner, drying her hands with towel. Dad, I need to tell you something. Shoot, you were right. About all of it. Well, I usually am. She smiled, tired but sincere. Alex is starting to see it too. At first, he was mad. Thought you were being harsh. Now, he sees they're finally stepping up. For the first time since I've known him, he doesn't feel responsible for carrying his parents. That hit me, because I hadn't done this to punish them. I did it to fix what Alex never could. Thanks, Dad. Don't thank me yet, I said. They still owe me $40 from the missed lawn trimming. We both laughed, but deep down I knew something had changed. This wasn't a war anymore. It was a re-education. They thought they could walk into my home, plant themselves on my couch, and stay as long as they liked. But now they knocked before entering a room. Now they asked what they could help with. Now they were acting like people who understood something critical. In this house, respect is rented, and rent is due every day that IT was the 4th Monday since the temporary stay began, and by now, the new system was in full swing. Nancy had stopped using my mug. Douglas had learned to keep the TV volume below the level of a jet engine. And Alex? He was quieter than usual, less smug, more cautious, which is probably why he thought he could test me. It started over something small. Too small, really. Sunday afternoon, I'd updated the weekly task chart. Douglas was supposed to trim the hedges and clean the tool shed. Nancy had laundry and lunch prep, a manageable load, and exactly what they agreed to when we renegotiated their contribution in exchange for a reduced rent. But Sunday night came and went. No hedges trimmed, no laundry done, nothing. Just leftovers in the fridge and Douglas asleep in my recliner again. At breakfast, I placed the clipboard on the table. Calm, deliberate. Looks like yesterday's chores didn't happen. Nancy didn't look up from her toast. We weren't feeling well. Douglas added, "It was Sunday, John. Day of rest." "Not in this house," I said. "Tasks don't disappear just because you're tired. That's not how responsibility works." Alex, who had stayed quiet for the past week, finally snapped. "Okay, enough," he muttered. "Can we all admit this is getting ridiculous?" "Excuse me." I looked up. "You've got my parents working like it's some kind of prison camp. Checklists? Penalties? This is a family home, not a factory." "Wrong," I said, folding my arms. "This is my home. And what's ridiculous is the fact that they're still here 4 weeks later, still expecting special treatment." "You're acting like a tyrant," Alex said. "You're controlling every little thing like a warden." I set down my fork. "You want to talk about control, Alex? Let's talk about what happens when you lose it. Because you did. The day you pulled into my driveway with your parents in a truck full of junk. You surrendered control when you dumped your problems into someone else's life without asking." "I was trying to help my family." "No, you were trying to avoid dealing with your own boundaries. So you made it my problem. And now you don't like that I run my house better than you run your life." Dead silence. Lauren was holding her breath. Even the kids went quiet in the other room. Alex pushed back from the table and walked out to the patio. "Fine, let him cool off. But Douglas?" He smirked. "Wrong move." After breakfast, I walked into the guest room. Piled clothes, dirty plates, an unmade bed. They'd gotten sloppy again. I stood in the doorway for a moment, then walked back to my office. Pulled out a fresh copy of the contract. Highlighted Clause 12. Failure to fulfill designated responsibilities will result in full rent being reinstated. Then I taped it to the bedroom door. An hour later, Douglas stormed into the kitchen. "What the hell is this?" "It's your reminder. You're seriously going to charge us $400 over a missed day?" "No," I said, sipping my coffee. "I'm going to charge you $400 because you broke the agreement you signed. It's just one day. It's not about the day. It's about the attitude." Nancy appeared behind him. "John, we were tired. We're not young anymore. You were energetic enough to go shopping Saturday. You weren't too old for the farmer's market." She didn't respond. "So you got two options. Pay the full rent or catch up on the work today." Douglas muttered something under his breath, but I didn't care. By 5 p.m., the hedges were trimmed, the tool shed swept, and 2 loads of laundry were drying on the line. That evening, Alex came back in calmer. He found me on the back porch, polishing my old fishing rods. Hey, look about earlier. I shouldn't have snapped." "No, you shouldn't have." He stood there a moment, staring at the trees. "It's just hard seeing my parents like this. I never imagined they'd be in a situation where someone else is in charge." "Alex, this isn't about who's in charge. It's about who's responsible. If they'd gone to a motel, they'd follow the motel's rules. This isn't any different. I guess I just wanted to be the one to help them." "Then you should have taken them to your place." He looked at me, and for once, no sarcasm, no excuses, just quiet understanding. "You're right," he said. The next morning, Douglas cleaned the driveway without being told. Nancy asked Lauren if she could help with the kids' school lunches. They were learning, but I wasn't letting my guard down, because I knew what happens when people start feeling too comfortable again. And I was ready for IT. IT was Thursday morning. Calm, too calm. The birds were chirping, the coffee was hot, and for once, nobody was stomping around or slamming doors. It felt like the house had finally adjusted, like all that resistance had given way to quiet compliance. But peace, I've learned, is often a mask. And Nancy? She was wearing it well. I first noticed it when the trash bins didn't make it out to the curb. That was Nancy's Wednesday task. I'd written it clearly on the whiteboard next to the fridge, with a little drawing of a garbage can and all. Yet here we were, Thursday, and the bins were still overflowing by the garage. At first, I figured she forgot. We all do. But when I checked the laundry, it was half done too. Just one load thrown in, the rest still in a soggy pile in the utility room. The bathroom sink had toothpaste hardened in the bowl. The stove? Greasy. She'd cooked, but hadn't wiped it down. That's 3 infractions in one day. And here's the kicker. She'd been out all afternoon the day before, walking around with her friend Carol from church. Came back with a new cardigan, and that smug looked like she'd just gotten away with something. She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought I was getting tired of keeping score. At dinner, I didn't say a word. Just passed the potatoes, smiled, talked about football. And then, after the meal, I pulled out the ledger. That's what I started calling it. A black leather notebook I kept near the bookshelf. Lauren hated the name. Dad, you sound like a banker, she said. Good, I told her. Because I've been investing in discipline. That night, I made a new entry. October 12th, Nancy. Missed trash. Missed laundry. Failed kitchen cleanup. Third warning. 3 strikes. Time for action. The next morning, I made a quiet change to the system. I installed a magnetic chore board on the fridge. Each task had its own little tile. Beside each one, I added a name. Vacuuming, Douglas. Lunches, Lauren. Trash, Nancy. Laundry, Nancy. Bathroom, shared. Every completed task got a green token. Missed ones turned red. 3 reds in a row. Full rent, no discount. Automatic. I didn't say a word. Just let them find it on their own. By noon, Nancy stood in front of the fridge, arms crossed. What is this? A visual accountability system, I said. Even a child could understand it. You're treating me like a child. Then stop behaving like one. Douglas chuckled. Nancy shot him a look that could have curdled milk. You didn't say anything about tracking our chores this way. I didn't say you could slack off. Either. I have medical issues. Then you should have brought that up 4 weeks ago before signing a contract. She turned red, slammed the cabinet, walked out, but I left the red tiles where they were. By Saturday, she was doing every single task without being told. But it wasn't out of remorse. No, it was revenge. She slammed dishes into the drying rack, threw the laundry basket down the hall. She scrubbed the bathroom with such force, I thought she'd destroy the tiles. It wasn't effort. It was performance. Drama. Douglas just kept his head down and mowed the lawn. Alex stayed quiet. Lauren avoided the kitchen altogether. That night, as I was locking up, I noticed Nancy's phone on the dining table. She must have left it by mistake. A text popped up. Carol, you still alive in that boot camp? Then another. Carol, tell John to back off. You're not a servant. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't read more. Didn't have to. Because Sunday morning, Nancy pulled a new stunt. She woke up early. Earlier than usual. Made pancakes. Bacon. Fresh orange juice. I thought I'd cook for everyone, she said, smiling too wide. I let it happen. We all ate. It was good. And then she said it. Since I handled breakfast and did the laundry last night, I think I've earned a day off. That's not how it works, I said. Well, maybe I'm done with the board. Then you're done with the discount. She paused. You'd seriously charge your own family full rent for 1 day of rest. I'd charge strangers double. You're getting the family rate. She slammed her fork down. This is abuse. No, Nancy, this is order. And if you don't want to be a part of it, the door is always open. I won't stop you from leaving, but I won't beg you to stay. Alex stepped in, trying to calm her. Mom, no, I've had enough. This is insane. Then go, I said. Go find a place where someone else will cook, clean, and pay the bills while you sit around complaining. Let me know how that goes. She didn't move, because she couldn't, because deep down, she knew this was the best offer she was ever going to get. Later that night, I checked the fridge. Trash tile green. Laundry green. Kitchen spotless. The system worked. Not because it was cruel, because it was clear. And clarity beats comfort. Every time, that there's a specific kind of silence that settles when someone's planning something behind your back. It's not peaceful, it's coiled. That's what it felt like the morning Douglas offered to handle the weekly food budget. He came into the kitchen with a manila folder under his arm and that fake casual tone he always used when he was about to push his luck. John, I've been looking over some things, he said, pouring himself a coffee from my beans into my mug. Thought maybe we could improve the grocery system. Save you a little trouble. I kept my eyes on the crossword. Didn't know it needed fixing. Well, we've all got different preferences, you know. Nancy's lactose intolerant, I'm cutting carbs, and Lauren's doing that gluten-free thing again. I've noticed, and I've been paying for all of it. He smiled like he hadn't heard me. What if I took over shopping and meals for the week? You could rest, and we'd pitch in more that way. It wasn't about helping. It was about control. I let him run his pitch. Meal plans. Price charts, coupons, even a hand-drawn flowchart taped to the inside of the folder. I've calculated we could shave down the weekly bill by 22%. He actually used the phrase cost efficiency in a multi-generational household. I nodded, stood up, and walked to the pantry. Pulled out a sealed envelope I'd labeled months ago, Contingency Plan D. Inside were 3 pre-printed sheets. Grocery roster with assigned portions. Pantry access schedule. Kitchen duty rotation enforced. I handed them to him. You want to take over food management? I said. Then you play by my system. He looked confused, then annoyed. You're joking. No. You want the kitchen? It comes with rules. Quantity tracking. Fair use. Penalties for late prep or food waste. Sign here. He stared at the signature line. You're treating this like a military op, and yet I've never missed a meal or a payment. He didn't sign. That night, Douglas tried something new. He left his own shopping list on the counter. Specialty items, name brands, almond flour, organic chicken thighs. The kind of stuff you'd only buy if you weren't the one footing the bill. Then he volunteered to pick up the groceries. Without asking, he took Nancy's car and left before breakfast. When he got back 2 hours later, the trunk was full. Got everything for the week, he said. Don't worry, I'll reimburse you later. Wrong answer. I made him unpack everything in front of me, line by line, item by item. Then I pulled out the ledger, tacked $143.58 to their rent share. You bought it, you pay for it. You're not serious. I warned you, Douglas. We don't change the rules just because someone's feeling bold. You want freedom? Earn trust first. You can't run a household like this forever. Good thing I'm not trying to run it forever. Just until the freeloaders move out. Silence. Lauren glanced over from the hallway. Nancy pretended to read a book. Alex was out back, sanding the picnic table, his first quiet act of contribution in weeks. That evening, something shifted. Douglas skipped dinner. The groceries sat in the fridge, untouched. He wasn't pouting. He was calculating. He thought he could outweight me. But what he didn't know, I'd outweighted Soviet winters, construction strikes, and a 32-year marriage. I had more patience than pride. 2 days later, Douglas tried to buy back goodwill. Cooked dinner himself. Grilled salmon, quinoa, kale salad. Everyone acted impressed. Even Alex said it was restaurant quality. But I stayed silent, watched him squirm through dessert. And then I asked, so, you planning to deduct this meal from your food reimbursement? Or was this a bribe? Douglas didn't answer. He knew I'd already won. The new kitchen rules stayed. Every item now had initials marked in Sharpie. I put locks on the deep freezer, and a motion sensor in the pantry, just to make a point. Some said I went too far. But the fridge? It stayed clean. The meals? On time. The waste? Gone. Because when someone tries to change the rules mid-game, you don't argue. You change the game. They say blood is thicker than water. But they never tell you how quickly that blood thins out when rent's due and someone's ego gets bruised. It started with whispers. Late-night conversations between Lauren and Douglas behind the bathroom door. Muffled arguments that died down the second I walked by. Sudden errands together that didn't quite make sense. And then, one afternoon, I walked into the living room and everything snapped into focus. Lauren was on the couch, holding my old family album, the one I kept locked in the chest. Douglas stood beside her, arms crossed, smug as a man holding a grenade with the pin halfway out. You never told me you cut off Aunt Marlene, Lauren said, not looking up. Wasn't relevant. You kicked her out of her own house. No. She walked out after forging Mom's signature on the second mortgage. Douglas chimed in. See? That's what I'm talking about. Jean rewrites history to fit his own rules. It's always his version of events. I stared at him cold. You went through my locked chest. It was Lauren's mother's house too, and it stopped being hers when she handed it over to me in writing. You want to check the deed? Douglas raised his hands, mock innocent, just trying to help Lauren see the full picture. That night, Lauren barely said a word at dinner. She picked at her food, glanced at me like I'd stolen something from her childhood. And then came the knife. I think it's time we discussed retitling the house. The fork dropped from my hand. Douglas jumped in. She's your only child, John. You're not getting any younger. God forbid something happens to you. Do you really want legal red tape preventing your family from inheriting what's rightfully theirs? My family already inherits what they earn. But you're not planning to live forever. I stood up slow, walked over to the bookshelf. pulled down the black binder marked estate documents. Opened to page 3. Pointed. Revocable living trust. Fully notarized. This house goes to Alex. Not Lauren. Dead silence. Lauren blinked. Douglas turned pale. You're joking. No, I said. Alex was the only one who offered to pay rent without arguing. The only one who asked before touching anything. The only one who showed up to fix the broken pipe in the garage when it flooded in June. He's 19. He's also not trying to steal the roof over my head. Later that night, Lauren came into my study. Her eyes were rimmed red, but she wasn't crying. I didn't know, she said. Didn't know what? That you already made those decisions. I looked at her for a long moment. No, Lauren, you just didn't want to ask. She sat down. Douglas is trying. He thinks you're controlling. I am. You admit it? Of course. I've been controlling the chaos you all brought into this house. The moment I stop, everything falls apart. The next morning, Douglas was gone. Took the car. Said he had a job interview. Left Lauren behind. No note, no call. She sat on the porch until noon, checking her phone every few minutes. By evening, she stopped checking. That night, she made dinner. Did the dishes. Didn't say a word. When I went to check the fridge, I noticed something new. A sticky note on the pantry door. Thanks for not kicking me out. I'll do better. Ed, people talk about loyalty like it's free. But in my house, it costs truth. It costs effort. It costs letting go of the liars you sleep beside. When someone steals from you, it's never about the money. It's about the insult. And when it's your own blood, the daughter you taught how to ride a bike, how to read a receipt, how to hold a screwdriver, the sting burns deeper than any zero on a check. The first time I noticed it, it was subtle. The kind of detail only an old man like me would catch. I keep my accounts like a battlefield map, every transaction tagged, every coin placed. It's not paranoia. It's preparation. That Tuesday morning, I opened the household expense sheet like I always do. And there it was, a $620 withdrawal from the Joint Emergency Fund, labeled plumbing repair. But there hadn't been any plumbing issues. I checked the basement, faucets, garden hose, all dry, all untouched. So I waited. I didn't accuse. I observed. By Friday, 3 more withdrawals. $240, car maintenance. $180, medical copay. $350, appliance replacement. Except the car hadn't moved. No one had a doctor's appointment. And the toaster still smelled like burnt bagels. I called the bank, asked for timestamps. Every withdrawal had one thing in common. Lauren's login ID. That night, I made soup. Served it at the table like nothing was wrong. We all sat, me, Lauren, Alex. Douglas hadn't come back since the job interview. Did you fix the car, Lauren? I asked casually, sipping broth. She looked up. No, what? Said you took out money for it. Her face twitched, just for a second. Oh, that. Yeah, I meant to. Just haven't had time. Interesting. Because you also haven't had time for the doctor or the broken appliances. Alex glanced up, confused. What's going on? I stood, walked over to the drawer, pulled out the ledger, slid it across the table. You've been pulling from the emergency fund without asking, lying on the labels. And I gave you the benefit of the doubt. Lauren's voice cracked. I needed the money, Dad. Then ask. You'd say no, then earn a yes. She broke. Tears hit the table before the truth did. She'd been paying Douglas's credit card bill, 2 months behind. His idea. He said it would tank both our credit scores if we didn't. So you stole from me instead? I didn't steal. You didn't ask. That's the same thing in my book. There's a difference between a mistake and a betrayal. Mistakes are loud, obvious. Betrayals come in the quiet moments, when someone chooses convenience over conscience. I could have yelled. I didn't. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I wrote a new rule. The next day, I drained the emergency fund, moved it into a private account under my name only. Then I taped a new sign above the kitchen table. Trust is earned, not entitled. All household spending requires signed approval. Violations equals removal from shared accounts. No exceptions. Lauren didn't speak to me for 2 days. Then, quietly, she left a folded paper on my desk. A handwritten repayment plan. No excuses. No promises. Just numbers. It was a start. People forget who taught them to count. But the man who showed you how to add? He always knows when something's been subtracted. The IT was 6:47 a.m. when I heard the truck. Same rattling engine, same half-broken muffler echoing down the driveway. But this time, the sound didn't irritate me. It made my stomach turn. I stood by the window with a mug of black coffee and watched Douglas step out of the truck, calm as ever, like he hadn't vanished for 12 days without a word. He wasn't alone. The passenger door opened, and a young woman climbed out, mid-20s maybe, dyed red hair, oversized sunglasses, a suitcase in one hand, and a Yorkie in the other. Lauren walked into the room just as the woman tripped over her own boots and let out a laugh loud enough to rattle the glass. She froze. "What the hell is this?" "Let's go find out," I said. Douglas didn't even pretend to be embarrassed. "Morning," he shouted, spreading his arms like some damn prodigal son returning from war. "Who's this?" Lauren asked, her voice sharp. "Oh, this is Chrissy. She needed a place to crash for a few days." "Here," she snapped. "Well, yeah. My parents won't let her stay with them. And I figured since we're already here." "No," I said flat. "What do you mean, no?" Douglas blinked. "I mean exactly that. She's not coming in. Neither are you." Lauren looked at me like she'd been sucker punched. Chrissy shifted uncomfortably, now realizing this wasn't the warm welcome she expected. Douglas rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on, John. You've got 4 bedrooms. She's not going to bite. I don't care if she levitates and makes omelets with her mind. She's not setting foot in my house. We're a family." "No," I cut him off. "She's your family now. You made your bed when you left without a word and drained Lauren's dignity with it." He scoffed. "This is why people don't like living with old men. You act like everything's a courtroom." "That's because it is. And the verdict's already been read." He turned to Lauren like I wasn't even there. "You're really going to let him talk to me like that?" "You left," she said. "Quiet. You left when things got hard and came back with another woman. She's a friend. You don't disappear on your wife and come back with a friend." Douglas's mouth opened, then closed. "No comeback." He looked back at Chrissy, who was now visibly uncomfortable. "I don't think this is going to work out," she mumbled. She started dragging her suitcase back to the truck. Douglas followed, still trying to plead. I didn't say another word. I just watched. The house was silent for hours after that. Lauren stayed in her room. Alex was at his part-time job, and I stood in the garage, staring at a pile of old tools I hadn't touched in years. That evening, I found a letter on my workbench. Lauren's handwriting. "Dad, you were right. About Douglas. About everything." I just didn't want to admit it, because it meant admitting I'd wasted years on someone who never really stood beside me when it mattered. "Thank you for not kicking me out when you had every reason to. I'm going to talk to a lawyer. File papers. Start clean. P.S. If you're still willing, I'd like you to teach me how to fix that leaky bathroom pipe myself. I don't want to keep relying on people who leave." I sat down, ran my fingers across the note like it was made of glass. I'd waited years to hear those words. Not the apology, but the decision. To stand. To stop folding. To grow up. Douglas came back, but he brought a mirror. And for once, Lauren finally looked into it. Some people think revenge is loud, a slammed door, a shouted truth, a public confrontation. But the best revenge I've ever known was silent. It was watching someone realize they'd pushed too far and seeing the door quietly close behind them for good. After Lauren left that letter, things shifted. She started waking up early. She asked questions, real ones, about the house, the pipes, the taxes, the locks, even the damned lawnmower. She learned, and I let her, not because I was trying to punish her, but because it was finally clear she wasn't playing the victim anymore. She was trying to take control. Douglas, meanwhile, called twice. Once to yell, once to beg. Both times I hung up. One morning, I sat with my lawyer. He wore the same blue tie he always did, the one with tiny sailboats. I never told him it annoyed me. It wasn't worth the breath. "So, John," he said, "you sure you want to move forward with the update to the will?" "Dead sure," I replied. "That'll cut out both Douglas and Alex." "I'm not cutting anyone out," I said. "I'm correcting a mistake. See, for 35 years, I'd been saving, investing, building. A house, a retirement fund, a family, and I assumed, foolishly, that blood meant loyalty. But now I saw clearly. Lauren had lied, yes. She'd taken what wasn't hers. But when the truth hit, she didn't double down. She stood up, on shaking legs maybe, but she stood. Alex? Still floating, still blaming, still waiting for something to land in his lap. Douglas? He wasn't family anymore. He was just a noise in a far-off room. An echo, not even worth chasing. 2 weeks later, the new papers were signed. My house, when I pass, goes to Lauren with one condition. She has to live in it. Not sell it. Not flip it. Not rent it. Live. Because roots don't grow in empty buildings. I didn't tell her right away. Not because I wanted to surprise her, but because I wanted her to keep building without knowing the reward. That's how you measure someone's soul. By what they do when they think no one is watching. But karma, oh karma, it doesn't miss. A month after Chrissy left Douglas, I heard through a neighbor that he'd moved into a motel. Jobless. Broke. Borrowing cars and burning bridges. Alex came by one day asking for help. Not for him, for Douglas. I stared at him for a full 10 seconds before answering. Let me tell you something, son, I said. I gave you both everything. And what did you give back? Silence. Disrespect. Excuses. This house. This roof. This food. All of it came with a condition you never read. Loyalty. Responsibility. Gratitude. You failed. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Just like Douglas had. They were brothers, all right, even in their defeat. That night, Laura and I sat on the porch. She sipped tea. I nursed a scotch. No words for a while. Just the sound of the wind rustling through trees I'd planted before she was born. Then she spoke. You ever regret any of it, Dad? I shook my head. Regret means you didn't learn. I learned. What did you learn? I looked over. At the woman she'd become. At the fire she finally lit in herself. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do is take back what you gave away too easily.